You certainly seem to enjoy our last Retro Tech video, and we've listened to what you've said. So, we've had a bit of a rummage in our respective attics to see what we could find.
That's right, we've battled through the cobwebs and we've come up with 4 more cool bits of retro tech that you're going to love. Just feast your eyes on these, Matt. The quite stunning Campagnolo Delta Brakes. An absolute design classic, originally made back in 1984 by the Italian brand, as a challenge to Shimano, who at the time were making some quite technological steps in the groupset market.
Yeah, and although they were absolutely beautiful, gorgeous to look at, they did have a few problems. Firstly, they were notoriously difficult to adjust. And secondly, and more importantly, they weren't particularly good at slowing you down, which of course was a big problem, resulting in fact in 5 different iterations of the Delta brake, the final version having 5 internal pivot points as opposed to 3 in the first iteration.
Now the first iteration of these was actually withdrawn from sale after reports of some failures, and then sadly they were discontinued back in 1994. They have, however, though, been known to fetch a fair price by some collectors worldwide. These are the 2nd edition model.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was looking on eBay just the other day and I saw a pair of Delta brakes for $3,500, although they were original prototypes. But yeah, as you said, they're highly collectible. Now, I was fortunate enough to ride Delta brakes in the 1992 Olympic Games, and I had a limited edition set of brakes. They were anodised in a cool, stealthy black, which Campagnolo called the Century Finish. John, this is your bike, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why on earth have you got Shimano levers and Campag brakes? That's basically heresy.
Well, yeah.
CARNAC was founded as a small shoe company in the rural town of Gest in northwest France in 1949. Now, at first they made normal everyday shoes before then specialising in cycling shoes that were handmade and non-mass produced, which really came to the fore in the late 1980s.
Yeah, and it was in the mid-1980s actually when clipless pedals really became popular, and CARNAC took the initiative, decided to use a different way of mounting cleats to the sole of a shoe, and that was via an insert system. Then in 1989 they actually patented that as the UCS interchangeable insert system.
Now, when 3-time Tour de France winner and tech trailblazer Greg LeMond started to wear their shoes in 1991 and 1992, this model in particular, the legend Kevlar, CARNAC saw their popularity soar. Now, CARNAC didn't actually sponsor that many professional riders. It was just the pros wanted to wear CARNAC shoes. They were that good, and let's face it, they look pretty cool as well.
Yeah, both Matt and I wore different versions of CARNACs throughout the 90s. This model, in fact this actual pair of shoes, Matt rode to victory in the National Road Race Championships back in 1998. And do you know what? They were stiff, they were comfortable, they were the shoe of choice, weren't they, back in the day?
They were, but shoes have come a long way since then, haven't they?
Leaps and bounds.
I mean, shoes are far stiffer, they use different retention systems rather than Velcro straps, and let's face it, shoes now are loads lighter. You know what we're coming to, don't you? Let's weigh these puppies. Right then, John, the time has come. Let's weigh in my 19-year-old shoes against a modern pair. Okay, so let's put these on the scales. Whoa.
Whoa. Okay.
929 grams. Basically, it's a kilo.
Yeah, it's a kilo.
It's a kilo of shoe. That's including the shoe plates. Okay, so 929 we've got a beat. Now, these are pretty much a state-of-the-art shoe. They're the brand new Physique Infinito R1s. Super comfortable, super light. Let's wear a pair of these, John. What do you reckon? Have a guess.
I don't.
611.
Wow.
So that's nearly a third of a kilo lighter just for a pair of shoes. The CINELLI AEROLITE helmet, or the Peapod to give it its rather unflattering nickname, although you can see why because of the shape, was actually made by the Italian company in 1985 with obviously aerodynamics and going fast in mind. And it was actually worn by the legendary Bernard Hinault, who scorched to victory in the prologue and then the stage 8 time trial of that year's Tour de France, en route to his 5th Tour de France victory.
As you can see, the AEROLITE is devoid of any vents whatsoever, no padding, no retention system. Basically, it's just secured with a bit of Velcro underneath your chin. It essentially started the aerodynamic helmet race, which is still going on to this day.
John, did you actually wear that helmet?
No, but I had one very, very similar. Back in about 1997, I sprayed it silver. I ended up looking like a Martian or a robot. The guy holding me up at the time trial, he laughed his head off. I never wore it again.
You sprayed it silver?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I'd never really owned one of those. I was envious of all my mates who had it, but they did lend me a helmet for a few individual time trials at the back end of the 1980s. But although you do look, reasonably fast in it, John, and relatively cool, it was Bernardino, if you ask me, who rocked it the best, mate. So,
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Sorry,
Cheers, mate. I think I look all right.
Take it off.
Now, we wouldn't blame you for thinking that electronic gear shifting was a new thing. I mean, with Shimano's wired Di2 system, came out as recently as 2009, and then SRAM's wireless ETAP system in 2015.
But you'd be wrong. French company Mavic, more famed for their wheels, launched electronic shifting a quarter of a century ago in 1992 with their wired system called ZAP, which was followed a few years later in 1999 by this, the world's first ever wireless shifting group set called MEKTRONIC.
So gear changing was transformed. For a while anyway. Mavic created a system which didn't use the parallelogram system. The chain powered the mech across the cassette. Quite something, as opposed to the motors in the modern day systems.
Pressing a button on the brake levers or at the end of the TT bars or the satellite shifter near the head unit would send a signal to the mech, which would engage with a toothed shaft turned by the jockey wheel. That, depending on the gear selection, either up or down, would wind the jockey inwards or outwards, changing sprockets in the process.
So the MEKTRONIC was beset with glitches and mechanical problems. There was a painfully slow lag between button press and the shift of the rear mech. When you went close to a radio mast, TV mast, it would just pack up, just didn't work. So with all of these put together, it led to the rather rapid demise and decline of the MEKTRONIC group set. It never caught on and it was discontinued shortly afterwards.
Now ultimately, although it was a trailblazing idea by Mavic, it was ZAP for MEKTRONIC. So I did it, mate.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to take these home, I'm going to give them a blast, and I'll let you know how I get on.
No, it's my turn. No, because I set this up and I actually got these off one of my mates. So I'm going to ride it home.
It's always you gets the good stuff.
No, but look, you can get really aero on as well. It's like if Batman had a kind of bike group set, it would be this one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that.
The Batwing-tronic.
Well, we really do hope that you enjoyed this little ride down Retro Tech Avenue. Have you got any of this stuff? And what do you think deserves to be in the next video?
Yeah, let us know in the comments down below what you'd like to see. Now do remember to like and share this video with your friends and to subscribe to the Global Cycling Network. Click on the logo, which is just here. And for 4 more cool bits of retro tech, click just down here.
Yeah, and for another retro video, where I rode an Alpe Orca in Euskaltel colours in the Pyrenees at the Tour de France. How about clicking just down here? You can stick Lloydie's leg back now, mate.
You could do with it.
It's good confidence to lend his leg though, isn't it?
Yeah.